Hey guys, Blarg here for Rise of Zek with another WoW legal video. Now, we weren't really planning to make a follow-up video so soon, or at least until we had some more Turtle WoW filings to look at in the lawsuit, but it turns out Blizzard is just on a warpath we can't ignore. To catch everyone up, early last week, Everlook, another WoW Emu server, decided to shut down after they said they were contacted by Blizzard. And then on Tuesday of last week, Blizzard issued a cease and desist letter to Project Epoch, dealing a huge blow to another up-and-coming private classic server that had huge community hype behind it. Now, we're very interested in all of this stuff, so if you're like us, make sure you like and subscribe so you can stay updated on what's going on. We're not going to go into the details of Project Epoch too much. Most people probably know about it anyway, but the basics are that it was kind of the next big thing in WoW Classic emulation, which a ton of people, including some folks at Rise of Zek, were getting pretty hyped for. Similarly to the recently sued Turtle WoW, it was set to be a Classic Plus vanilla server, but expand the World of Warcraft with new zones, towns, quests, and more. And now, well, the current webpage speaks for itself. The developers of Epoch posted a Discord announcement of the cease and desist that noted that they were shutting the servers down and the website down immediately. They folded as fast as they possibly could. Blizzard also, according to developers of Epoch, hit all of the Project Epoch YouTube videos with copyright strikes, resulting in their YouTube channel being deleted. The dev moved the YouTube videos to the website temporarily, but as you saw, that's obviously now down as well. Interestingly, the devs for Ascension, which is another WoW Emu project but with more unique rule sets, posted claiming that they're going to take over Project Epoch and that they'll keep some of the realms at least online. And since Ascension is allegedly located in Russia, they probably believe that they'll be able to ignore any legal action from Blizzard. And that may well be the case, as we'll discuss in a little bit. But it's unlikely that any US and probably any EU servers will remain available, as Blizzard has shown they have full intention to approach any ISP and payment processor and the like to prohibit their provision of services to anyone infringing on Blizzard's intellectual property. Earlier today, we saw a few Reddit posts of folks complaining that they had gone from 20 to 40 average ping to well over 200, so it sounds like the server location may have already occurred. Or maybe someone just was having a bad day with their internet, we can't be sure. But since we don't have any legal filings to look at, and because the actual Project Epoch cease and desist letter hasn't been made public, at least to our knowledge, we thought it might be worth discussing what exactly a cease and desist letter is and what that means for those on the receiving end. Now, at its core, a cease and desist letter is really just a formal legal notice or demand letter sent by a person or a company, or lawyers of a person or a company, demanding that someone stop doing something. Usually that something is activity that infringes on intellectual property rights, but it may also be something that violates a contract or threatens the reputation or safety of an individual or a group. Think of it as a legal version of a stop doing that or else letter. And in this case, the or else typically means or else we'll sue your ass. These letters are often the first step before a lawsuit, but they're not required by the law. They're pretty serious, and they don't necessarily mean a court case is always imminent, but ignoring one gives you a really high chance to get sued. Lawyers like to send them because if they can get people to stop doing the bad thing, then it saves a lot of money, obviously, for their clients. And it also, they can take that before the court and try to show like, hey, we were being reasonable, we gave them a chance to stop, and so now you need to, hit them hard with the legal hammer. Now, these demand letters get sent out on a fairly regular basis, but they're usually kept private, and they often have a clause in them specifically demanding that the contents of the cease and desist letter remain private, or else by releasing them you may find yourself in even more legal trouble. But occasionally, one side or the other will publish the letter, usually either as a rallying cry to try to gain public support and often financial help if you're on the receiving end of one, or as a not-so-veiled threat to anybody else who might think of doing any of the same offending activity if you're the one sending the letter out. There are a few cease and desist letters floating around online, and our personal favorite that's readily available is the one that involves Taylor Swift. And now you might remember that not too long ago, Taylor Swift was in the news because a college student who ran social media accounts was tracking her private jet flights. Primarily, I think, with the intent to shame her environmentally unfriendly practices of jetting all over the place, multiple flights in the same day type thing. But Taylor Swift's legal team sent that college student a cease and desist letter claiming that it was a, quote, life or death matter, because they said it threatened her safety to have one of the most famous people in the world being publicly tracked. And I can see both sides of that argument. But the end result, I think, was that the accounts were more or less removed from several platforms and the whole thing kind of died down. But what you do see from that, from all of the available cease and desist letters and the ones I've seen in my career, is that typically they are coming from someone in a position of power to someone who is smaller and probably doesn't have as good of an opportunity to respond. Now, just like Taylor Swift sending a cease and desist letter to a college student, you have Blizzard sending, a cease and desist letter to a EMU server that surely can't be harming them that much. But this is nothing new for Blizzard. We know that other server owners and developers in the past have received cease and desist letters from Blizzard. We were trying to find a full-length one. The only thing we could find was a small picture of a partial one from the Felmus server dev, who I believe shut his server down almost immediately back in 2017 or 2018 after he allegedly received a cease and desist letter only 5 hours after taking his server live, which is that's gotta sting. So, where does all this leave the rabid fans of WoW MUs and the even more rabid haters of Blizzard? Well, first, if Russian groups are gonna be wholesale taking up the task of running all of these WoW MU servers, they're probably not gonna be going away for a while, no matter how much Blizzard would love to completely shut them down. US civil judgments are not generally enforceable in Russia, and even if these were somehow criminal cases, which they are not, Russia doesn't extradite to the US anyway, so neither civil or criminal cases are enforceable there. As a general rule, that means the Russian servers are immune to US legal action. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, and I hinted at a little earlier in this video, Blizzard does have ways to stop US businesses and US citizens from interacting by blocking ISPs and threatening to sue payment providers and those kinds of things. But even at the most extreme level, a good VPN is probably going to get around most of that. Interestingly, before the war in Ukraine, Microsoft had a lot more influence in Russia, and they might have had some weight to throw behind getting the Russian government to crack down on this kind of thing. But with all the sanction imposed by so many different countries on Russia, Microsoft has essentially stopped doing new business there entirely and barely is supporting their legacy business, like most companies. And as a result, the Russian government has pretty much no incentive to help out. And US-Russian government relations aren't exactly stellar. I can't imagine that the US government would get involved, but even if they did, I don't think they'd be making a lot of headway these days. So, really, at the end of the day, I guess it's just time to fire up the VPNs, learn to tolerate a little bit of lag, and probably pick up a few Russian swear words so you can fit in global chat. Because I don't think Blizzard's going to stop anytime soon, and I don't get the impression that the Russian developers and hosts plan to stop on their side anytime soon either. So that's it for now. We don't really know what the end result of this is, but we're definitely going to keep our ear to the ground. We have our docket notifications on for all the MU lawsuits out there, and we'll be sure to update you guys once we know more from either WoW side, EQ side, or any other legal filings that are going on in the gaming world. So until then, we'll see you next time.